One. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a very special Maximum Monday. Today, I got my boy Turkey above me here, and I got everybody's favorite game developer, lead designer, Micah Brown from Maximum Entertainment for Maximum Football. Say what's up, everybody.
Hello.
What's going on, guys? Glad to be here.
All right, now, let's just ask the first question right off the rip. So let's start at the beginning, Micah. What made you guys get into? What made you get into video game trading? That side of it. What made you pick that career path for yourself? What inspired you for that?
Well, first off, I was a gamer, like probably most of your listeners. Huge gamer. Played all the time, mostly into RPGs, and originally it was Ultima Online back in the day. Played Ultima Online religiously all the time. Favorite game of all time. Pretty much every game I think about, like when I try to design games or anything like that, I always have Ultima in the back of my mind. I also played college football. Played high school football. And what led me basically to this project was, they knew I knew a guy who worked on the project originally. He knew I played football. He knew I was in the game industry, and he brought me in, interviewed me. I talked about, basically just went through the interview, how much I love football, and basically landed the job working on Maximum. But originally it was just a love of video games. I also went to grad school for video games at UCF. It's a master's degree through it's called FIA, Florida Interactive Entertainment Academy. And so got a master's degree there. And yeah. And then after that, I went to work at EA Sports, worked on Madden for a few years. And then after that, I started my own little company, a little game development studio company, and we made zero money. And so about after a year, we all just quit and went back and worked for studios.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm going to jump right into the gameplay because that's what everybody's been glossing over the past couple of months. And really, let's talk about it. So the improvement and the steps y'all have made just in this last 6 months window is very visible as opposed to you make on Twitter. So let's just talk about that real quick. Explain some of the processes going behind these big leaps over the last couple of months that you guys have made as far as gameplay wise.
Sorry, you broke up. You said, can you repeat the last part of that?
As far as gameplay wise, explain what went into some of the leaps that you've made over the last couple of months. The strides y'all have had.
Well, a lot of the strides we've made in the last couple of months, they were kind of loaded and ready, right? Basically, a lot of things came to fruition in the last couple of months, like the physics and all these, like physics, the lighting, a lot of the cinematics, a lot of the gameplay elements, a lot of that stuff we've been working on for like 2 years now, and they've been in about 0.25% done, 50% done, 75% done, depends on the features. But one feature will be 75% done, another feature will be like 80%, and then something else will be 50. In the last couple of months, things have been coming kind of to completion. So a lot of the big strides we've made in the last couple of months are actually due to the last year and a half of just hard work that laying down the foundation for all of these mechanics. And they're all kind of sort of just finishing.
Coalescing into like one finished project. And it seems like there is a lot of stuff like rolling out through like right now, like we're getting a lot of good information, a lot of stuff that people have been asking for. So I see whenever you're saying having them like loaded and ready, I see what it's like, all right, 95%, boom, 90, boom, here comes the next one. It's right around the corner. I see what you mean by that.
Yeah. And the thing is, until a feature is really done, and not even just done, right? Because the first step is you get something working. And when it works, you're like, oh, cool, it works. Awesome. Like this guy can now go into a hole, or this guy can now catch the ball well. But that's just the first step, getting it working. After that is the polish to make sure that it works like beautifully. So there's a lot of things we have working, and then we'll post it online or something, post it on Twitter, and then somebody will see like one small part of it that's not completely polished. And and they'll kind of, exactly. So
I mean, I feel like development and actual implementation of it are like, I feel like they're almost like two, not necessarily a separate process, but it's like you said, it's one thing to be like, okay, he can catch. Okay, but now how about actually applying it to a simulation perspective? Like he can catch, but now will he catch in an actual realistic scenario, given, the trajectory of the ball flying in, where he's out on the field, where his toe land in bounds if he actually, does it look like there's effort? So I see what you mean, all that stuff coming into one.
Yeah. Yep,
Well,
exactly.
that also like ties right into something you were talking about last week about like some breaking down the catching, right? Catching angles, the sideline catching, and some of the stuff like that in the server. And I've got some gameplay up on the screen right now. Sideline catch. Can you break it down? Kind of what goes into just something as simple as no defense on the field, just a guy running his route, the ball trajectory, and him catching the ball.
Are you showing right now
I am,
at
yes.
the video? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't see your screen, but so basically, you're seeing the ghosted images, sort of like
Yes.
the. Okay.
The orange and the purple and the yes.
Okay, so this is actually a pretty big feature. This thing has been we've been working on this stuff for a while. Um, and so this catching the so before we had this working, so what you're seeing right there is the catching system is trying to pick the right animation to get to the ball at the ball's landing location.
Right.
So you got to understand the way the animations work. So when you have a catching animation, it's a certain length of time, right? It might be like 1 second, 1.5 seconds, and so the player starts from here and he ends up here or something like that.
Okay.
And the animation might take about 2 steps, 1 step, 3 steps. It really just depends. But when you play that animation, it has to get to the point of the catch right when the ball is landing there, right? So the ball is incoming, it's dropping like a mortar, and you got an animation that starts here and then it has to end right here when the ball arrives at his hand. And so what you're seeing right there is basically it's checking all of these different animations to make sure that the end pose lines up directly with the ball when it lands there. So there's other things we do to make sure that the hands we use IK to make sure that like the ball doesn't have to be directly into the hand. The hand can actually move a little bit and get to the ball. But there's some limits there because if you go too far with IK, the arms will like stretch out and go behind the head and catch right here or do all this weird stuff. So what you're seeing there has allowed us to, before that system started working that you're looking at, we had to actually warp the ball. So the ball would be in the air, flying with physics, right? Just purely going with physics. And then right when it got to the last like 5 yards, it would warp to the player's hands. That it wanted to go to.
For me personally, looking like kind of from an untrained perspective, the way that I'm recognizing that and I'm seeing the ball, I'm looking at it as like it's like a keyframe almost. Like I'm almost in like editing, but you're thinking about it like live, and you're also considering the players, the timing of like when the person who's controlling the user thinks they should throw the ball. So it's not as simple as like, the ball's on the way there, this animation should happen. There's an amount of time that ball is in the air, and if the ball doesn't have its own physics, you're also, you have the stats of the ball, the person throwing the ball that come into play with where it's going. So it's actually interesting to see that broken down and to see the animation keyframes. You explained that honestly really well. That was really cool to see coalesce and hear you explain that from your perspective.
I appreciate that breakdown. It's honestly rolls.
Absolutely, that was actually cool. I was like, wow, like I see what you're saying. I can see it turning that color, the animation selected. Wow, that's sick, dude.
Even watching this, like the hand breakdown of it was dope. But that leads me to this next thing. Everybody praised y'all when y'all first came out, saying we're going to be a physics-driven game, right? That was a big focus for you, physics. So I'm going to pop this physics gameplay clip up that you shared earlier, and I'll have this question for you because everybody seems to have this wild idea that if you have physics, you don't need animations. If you have animations, you don't need physics. And that's why people say they hate Madden, because there's too many animations compared to physics. So explain somewhat how you have a perfect combination of physics and animations to make the game.
I don't know if it's perfect yet. It's going to take some time to get to perfection. So are you showing the clip that I sent of? It's not a football player. It's just a model in the Unreal Engine, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a good example. So what you're seeing there is an animation. But it's a physics-driven animation. So basically what happens is as soon as the ball hits his leg, it basically just ragdolls the player, right? Ragdolls the player's legs. It's not complete ragdoll, it's a constrained ragdoll. So like the way you can do a ragdoll is like if somebody hits an arm right here, right? If you set like the stiffness of it to like 0, it'll just fly off, right? You can just throw it off. If you set the stiffness to like 5 or something, it'll barely move, right? And you can do that with all these different body parts. So you can hit the shoulder and it'll barely move, hit it more. And so that's a lot of what the ragdoll does. You just kind of bounce it all over the place.
Would you say you use those factors to balance out, like essentially like reactions, like the stiffness factor is what you would consider like a readiness, like how ready somebody is for actual physics to be into play is whenever you say like the stiffness rating of it, whenever they're in there.
We haven't gotten that far yet to where to where like attributes and stuff like that are
Okay.
affecting the stiffness ratings. That's a level of polish. Like that's what I mean by a level of
Wow.
polish. You get the
That's
physics
crazy.
working, and then
Wow.
you start layering on stuff like
So
that.
that goes into play with like Roberts with DBs and wide receiver battles, right? The attributes along with the animations and physics, like the
Mhm.
in air battles for the ball. Basically, is what I'm saying.
Yep.
That's insane.
Yeah. So the
Right.
attributes. So basically, what we got to do, what we're starting to jump into right now, and this is now that system's working, the one that you showed earlier with the catching.
Mhm.
You know how it picks the ghosted image to kind of figure out like which animation matches up, but you also have to. It also picks who's going to swat it, right? Like it uses attributes to figure out like the highest catch point or like the highest point of this player. How high can he get up there to tip it? And it picks an animation based off of those attributes. So we haven't gotten to the point yet where our attributes are picking like spectacular catches, like crazy diving catches and all that kind of stuff. That'll be the next level. And like once you get to like 95 attribute up to 100, you'll start having these like fantastic catches and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to throw that clip up you shared in the server as well about it's almost perfect for this. When it's a bunch of ghost images in the middle. That one, you know what I'm talking about, where they're fighting for the
Yeah.
ball. It's this perfect
Mhm.
breakdown for this. So it's not quite there yet, but the way you're talking, it's a whole other system along with the algorithm, basically, of other queued up things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's nuts. Just to go
There's
into
so
one
many like
play.
working parts. It's actually really fascinating to see the breakdown of the animation selection. I'm thinking about it from like an editorial standpoint. Like you think like layers upon layers upon layers. Like one layer is the functionality, the next one is the animation, then you have the variable, which is the user, and then there's just so much more that goes into this than I expected. But to see the progress being made in it is actually insane. And prior to this interview, you were talking about the physics. So I was like, I wonder if the football has its own physics. And then you're like, well, the
Yeah.
football used to have its own. And I was like, wow, this is insane.
It's
This is
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. I mean, so that's why the passing feature is such a big thing, because it makes the ball pure physics.
Yeah.
Whereas before it was pure physics, and then right at the end it would kind of warp. But now we just have pure physics. So even when you kick it, like the ball
Wow.
it'll never do anything that's predetermined. The ball will
Wow.
always be driven by physics.
It's
Yeah.
all
That's
live too.
incredible.
It's
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
on time. The whole thing through. That's amazing. Okay, I'm gonna stick with the gameplay stuff right now. Okay, so way back you guys said the control scheme is similar to the old K style. What made you guys pick a different control scheme than the popular Madden one, air quote, type thing? What made y'all go that route as far as the control?
We're actually not done with the control scheme. We can change the buttons. We tried to. I mean, we had an original control scheme that was based off of Madden, and then we switched it up and kind of based it off 2K, and then we listened to what people in the Discord were saying. We've asked everybody what they think the control scheme should be, and everybody has a different opinion. So we're not exactly done. The default controls, not a. There'll still be some tuning. There'll still be some polishing left before we're completely done with those. But I think in the end it'll be close to Madden.
Okay, well, I have a big one coming for you here,
Right.
Micah. So I'm gonna share this intro screen that you sent us, the one where
Okay.
the stadium zoom in, and the seats are purple.
Oh yeah. Mhm.
Everybody and their mother wants to know: will Stadium Creator eventually find his way to maximum? Is that something in the pipeline?
You said a stadium creator?
Yeah.
Yes. It's not going to be at launch though. So the beginning of a
go.
stadium.
Okay.
The beginning of the stadium creator is going to be the field designer, and the beginning of that is just changing the color of the field, the grass, and then the beginning of like the stadium designers is just changing the seat colors. And then we'll get to a point, and then after, like right now, you just change the seat colors, and it takes your team's primary color and your team's secondary color, and it kind of mixes the seating sections between those two colors.
Okay.
The next step after this is we're just going to start building on top of that, so that you can like pick a section and change that section's colors, seat
Yes.
colors, pick that
So-
section. Yep.
So, like,
That's
because
nice.
the only thing that's comparable right now, I don't know if you play MLB The Show, but that's basically the only thing that you can have a template off of what a stadium creator could look like, unless you go back to the older Maddens. So,
Or even older games in All Pro Football 2K8, like there was actually a similar system implemented in All Pro Football 2K8 where they chose your uniform colors for like your home field, because they didn't have they did have some of the athletes in All Pro Football 2K, but they didn't have all of them. They had like legends like Jerry Rice, Earl Campbell, and all those back in that, and that was all custom created. So that's so cool to see that implemented. That's dope.
The
That's really cool.
oh sorry.
No, go ahead. No,
Oh
go
no,
ahead.
that was just.
I mean, the vision we've kind of talked about internally when we actually do come out with the stadium creator is something similar to old school Halo Forge.
Oh
Where you
my
move pieces around
goodness!
and stick them together.
Wow. That's
Um, the way we actually currently our stadiums, the stadiums we have right now are all built with modular pieces. So you can actually you can make new stadiums pretty simply, pretty quickly. Like I can jump in right now and make my own stadium if I wanted to, because we have all these modular pieces and they can just stick together. And if you want like a bigger section, you just grab another piece, stick it in there. If you want to add some box seats on top, you can just stick them on. It's all very like Lego pieces.
It sounds reminiscent of like the map editor. Also, like I'm picturing. I don't know if you've played it back in the day. I know it's a completely separate genre, but Far Cry Instinct's Predator and the old Far Cry games back in the day had a
Yes.
level editor and where you could like snap pieces of terrain, you could snap building blocks, and you could create almost pre-edited structures. So that's insane to think it's that easy to create your own. That's awesome. That's so cool.
That's
to have
exactly
that
how
at your
MLB
fingertips.
works. That's almost
Oh,
exactly
nice.
to the T. Like it's like you pick a structure you like and you snap it on where you want.
Yeah, that's really
Yeah.
fun, especially in the football space. Like things like that really excite me, honest. That's why that wow for me, like it's like that's so cool because I love the creativity aspect of it. I'm thinking about that, like I said at the beginning, prior when we were first talking. I'm definitely like more of an intermediary person. Like I'm really interested in a different kind of football game aside from just Madden and and it's no slander. I'm far from the person to just slander. Just Ultimate Team and just the NFL. I've always been somebody that likes to create their own player and create my own experience. And to hear that you're able to do that, so simply, and those are things in the pipe. That's super exciting to me from the outside in of that genre. That's really cool to hear.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm the same. And just so you know, like it's working on the back end so that we can, make new stadiums
Right.
pretty simply. But
Wow.
it's going to be a good amount of work to get it working on the front
Of
end and
course,
make
of
sure.
course.
Yeah. So cool.
Okay. So that leads into something. Speaking of creative, I don't know if you've heard we have a universe mode trying to build. Heard about that at all?
No.
Within Maximum. So basically, what we're trying to do is we're gonna have our online version of our own world in Maximum. We're gonna have a high school, college, and professional league. So
All
that
right.
leads me to exactly. So that leads me to this. Like so, with all the customizations you have, like the capabilities, like is basically endless. So everybody wants to know if I have connected leagues like this, a high school, a college, or a pro level, will I be able to import my rosters? Like, will I be able to have all those things to be able to upload and cross save over? That's basically everybody's biggest worry. Offering basically two genres in football and one basically.
You're saying, so let me make sure I understand the question. You're saying, can you take like, if you have like a high school league, can you take the players and move them into like college
Yes, if
league?
I
And
have a
then,
college league and move into the pros, can I do that?
okay.
For draft
So yeah.
purposes.
So right now we don't really have plans for high school. We could potentially, not saying it's not something that we won't do, but right now the main focus has been on college and pro. And so we are building franchise right now, and a part of franchise, one of the main parts of franchise is being able to take your players from Dynasty, import them right into the franchise mode, and doing all that without having to leave the game, right? Like, the way we want it to work is basically in any of your Dynasty modes, in any of your Dynasty leagues, you could basically just export a draft class, and you'll have a library of draft classes. And then when you go into franchise, you can just select whichever draft class you want to select from that library of draft classes, import them into your franchise as a draft class.
Love it. Love everything I just heard. That's amazing because that's what everybody's biggest thing is for this college dropping is they want to be able to import their rosters. So that was great to hear. All right, so let's stick within one more gameplay quick. Is specifically in modes really. Dynasty, right? I know that's like the big thing y'all been working on in the scenes. How far has that come along since the last time posted about?
Dynasty is in the final stages. For launch, I mean, right? I don't think
Right,
we'll
yeah.
ever really, like we'll always be working on Dynasty. But for what we want to launch with, we are pretty much just in the polishing of it right now. So in the private Discord the other week, I kind of sent out a message to everybody in there and said, hey, is there anything in our Dynasty that's missing? Anything that you want changed? And so we've collected some feedback, and right now we're kind of doing the last piece of Dynasty improvements before we kind of just wrap it up and then fully move on to franchise. So we have about half of our Dynasty team who just moved over to start working on franchise. And then once we have in about 2, 3, 4 weeks, we'll probably move the rest of those guys over to franchise. So the last thing we're working on in Dynasty is the ability for teams to basically bad teams. So we're going to start ranking the conferences in Dynasty. And then the worst teams are going to start filtering to the bad conferences, and then the better teams will start filtering up to the better conferences. And so that should be the last thing we add to Dynasty until launch, and then after launch we'll start adding some more stuff.
All right. So another one for the creative side. Will there be a play editor? Because I know in the previous Maximum Footballs they had a play editor, and I didn't know if you guys are going to bring that over for some fashion of that.
Like designing your own plays.
Yes.
That's so we wanted to have that in by launch, and that was one of the features that we actually cut, because we're trying to get the game out and stop pissing everybody off. But so so the play designer is, it's something that we started building, so it kind of works in the back end. We obviously have a play designer because we make our own plays. So for all of us designers and everybody else on the team who makes plays, we have a play designer that works. But to actually get that working on the front end for the user, we're not going to have that until after launch. But the way we want it to work is we don't just want you to like pick a tree, like a route tree. It would be nice. The way we want it to work is you can be able to draw any play that you want.
Yep, exactly.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that's something that's coming down the pipeline after lunch. Okay. So, way back. This is for online stuff now. Keep that in mind. This is an online thing. 11v11 was something y'all talked about a while ago. Is that still planned? I'm assuming it's again post launch. But is that something you still guys want to tackle or no?
Maybe. It just depends. So first we're starting one-on-one, 1v1, which is already working really well. And then we're moving basically to 2v2, 3v3, and all multiple players playing each other. 11-on-11 is kind of a different can of worms because you have to figure out what to do with offensive linemen. And you have to make offensive linemen fun. So we have some ideas for how to make offensive linemen fun, but before we actually get to 11-on-11, we have to make them fun. So it's not like we can't just think like, oh, we'll make them fun eventually, whatever, and then 11-on-11 first, and then we'll make them fun later. So first we have to make it fun, which means you have to have actual blocking mechanics that the user can do with their controller, right? So, and you got to figure out what that is, because in every football game you've ever played, there are no blocking mechanics, right? You can't even control the offensive lineman. Yeah. I've never played a football game where you can control an offensive lineman. So you can't have, So we have some. Okay, yeah, and I don't even know. Is it fun? I mean,
it's not out yet.
Will it be fun? Yeah, will it be fun? I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? It's funny you mentioned that. Like, I've never even really thought about that. And I've played a ton of from like Quarterback Club 99 to NFL Fever, Madden 2K, like all these games. And I remember even I don't know if it was what year 2K it was, but they marketed playing first person mode as Warren Sapp. But I'm like, man, I don't think you play as the center or anything, because that's an interesting thought you proposed. I've never thought about not playing as an O lineman. That's crazy.
See, I'm a different breed. I look forward to that. That's the battle in the
that would be that would be great if there's always something somewhere I think for somebody to find, but like you said, you have to find that before you're like, yeah, this is what we'll do. You just can't plop that in there. I see exactly what you mean. It's like having an incomplete aspect of an otherwise polished thing. And
also, like, you got to see if the engagement's there, right? You don't want to put all that work into online mechanics if people never want to be a lineman. So,
yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Yeah, it has to be fun. Yeah, it has to be fun, and it can't be like it can't be. I mean, but we've thought about doing something where like, what's the Star Wars Battlefield game that's out? Where
Battlefront 2.
And again, and this isn't the feature. I'm just saying what we brainstormed. But we've thought about doing something where like the more you play, you get points, and then you can kind of like pick the quarterback to play as the quarterback or something, and then something like that, where if you only have a few points because you've not been playing very well, then you have to play as an offensive lineman, and the more points you gain from doing good things, like if you block somebody, pancake them, nicely, then maybe you'll get a bunch of points, and then you can pick the quarterback and play as a quarterback for a drive. We don't know yet, but those are some of the ideas we have.
I was looking at one question from the chat, and it kind of like resonated with something that I just remember from sports games. It always drew me in, and it was from Game Zone, and they said, "What are the plans for presentation? For example, announcers, halftime show, pregame show, sideline report." So, and I know all those. That's like that's a lot of things to say, but for when I say like it mattered, I remember playing Fight Night Champion, and they had Joe Tessitore and Teddy Atlas, and that wasn't an aspect of the game, obviously, that I interacted with. But the level of what they were saying about what was going on, it seemed really interactive, and it's like it just felt real, if that makes any sense. Like, the
Yeah.
way that they were talking, and I feel like that brings a whole nother ball game to it whenever you can implement something that's not just a cutscene you hit skip on. You know what I mean? Like, there's instances where there'd be dialogue, and I'd be like, oh wow, he's saying something that sounds interesting, and I haven't heard it before. And I was curious, and as was Game Zone, about what are your thoughts on the effect of the atmosphere, rather than just the physics that we've been mentioning in the gameplay. How do you feel about the announcer and the crowd cheering and bringing that to the game itself?
Well, one of the main things that I think our game lacks right now is commentators. We don't have two booth commentators in the game.
Mhm.
And what ends up happening is you don't really realize how much the commentators add to the atmosphere, especially the downtime, right? Like in between plays when you're just picking plays, or
Yeah.
there's a lot of downtime. I mean, there's not a lot. We're trying to cut most of it out, but there's some downtime, and commentators really fill that up, and they really make it interesting. And it's one of the things that we don't have right now. So we just finished our first prototype. So we've just kind of started, actually about 2 months ago. We really started the push to get the two commentators in. And so we went out, we looked through a bunch of different voice actors, found some guys we liked, found some guys that sounded really good.
Mhm.
And we've just, in the last 2 months, we've started building the prototype for this commentary system. And I got my first listen to it last week, and it sounds really good.
Yeah, that's
Um,
awesome. That's so
whether
awesome.
it's whether it's ready by launch or not, I don't know
Mhm.
yet.
It's
But
oh no, go ahead. No, man.
we're not gonna delay the launch for the commentary. So if it's
Absolutely.
not ready by launch, then we're launching without it. So we knew from the beginning that we weren't gonna focus heavily on presentation. Um, we wanted presentation to be good, of course, but the main focus, like we were focused like a laser for the last year and a half on gameplay. Um, just the moment to moment gameplay, and we in our minds were like, all right, we got we'll pay attention to presentation and try to get some sort of base level of presentation, but we can't put all of our eggs into that basket right now, right? We can't put all of our resources into presentation. We got to make sure the gameplay is fun. Nobody's going to care about a sweet touchdown celebration or great commentators if the gameplay sucks.
Yes.
So that was
Sincerely
first.
see that 100%.
but but we do have, so we said, all right, we can't get booth commentators, that's going to be too complicated right now, we don't have time for it. But we can get an announcer on the field. So, high school games, if you remember back when you were in high school or watching high school games, there's usually an announcer who comes out of the loudspeakers. And he's, somebody who's just a voice on the field. Um, so we have one commentator who's a voice on the field, and he's, he doesn't really add much atmosphere. He just calls the play like, 5-yard gain by the running back. It's now
Mhm.
first and 10.
Mhm.
So he'll say basic things. It keeps you informed, and it helps kind of kill some of the downtime. Um, but really, until we get those two commentators, I don't think the presentation will be like some of that downtime won't be as interesting as it could be. But we do have some new cinema. Like we are working. We've got some really cool new cinematic updates, and I sent a couple over to you, Cozy.
Oh yeah,
But
I'm about to throw one up right now. To throw
yeah,
one
and
up right now. But
if you compare some of these cinematics to the stuff we used to have, it's night and day. Like
Wha-
it feels like we're getting to the level of AAA quality with some of our cinematics.
really good. And
Yeah,
I've said it from the jump, and you probably heard it 1,000 times here. Like it's like you said, like it doesn't matter if you have the best announcer and all the cool emotes in the world if the gameplay sucks. You nailed it right on the head.
yeah,
And honestly, like
yeah,
if the gameplay is right, the announcers can come. That was a
yeah,
I
very
think that's a conflicting paradigm. That's where I think where we're at in this day and age is a lot of it seems like developers these days lose. I'm not going to say it because I'm not a developer, but when I see I've played games since I was 4 years old, so I can feel what I'm enjoying if it's good. Reviews come in, sales and stuff. At the end of the day, people buy what they buy. But people, it seems like, have gotten in the process of making games that sell rather than making a
yeah,
good game first. And you can do both. But if you make a good game, I feel like the results are so much more beneficial to the entire space. And what I'm hearing that's approaching a vision and approaching it in a way to make a good game is solid. And that you'd love seeing like this type of progress and watching the animation on screen. These are some extremely solid cinematics.
I just want to say real quick before the next question
Look at that
applies.
lighting.
We just appreciate it as a community. See how much care and hard work and love y'all doing. It shows like y'all actually care. You're not just out to be like a hype train and to fizzle out. So Just wanted to say that real quick.
Yes, absolutely.
Honestly,
Especially bringing something new to the space, and actually, everybody knows whenever you say bringing something new to the space, what it's been for so long. But it's really interesting to see someone really like just kind of sticking their cleats in the ground and going full forward with it. So I really just echo what Quasi is saying.
okay.
I mean,
Okay.
yeah. Personally, I mean, I don't. I want a game that I want to play. You know, I want to play. I want to play a good football game, man. Like I haven't played a good football game in so long that I really love. So, like for me, it's a personal thing. You know, like I want to play a game that I like, that I enjoy. Yeah. So I don't, and everybody else on the team's the same way. You know, we've talked about it. Like if the game, you know, at the end of the day, we will produce a great game, right?
Yes.
How the game sells, how the game, all this other stuff, that's a whole different story. You know, at the end of the day, all we can do is create a good game, and that's all we're focused on.
Yes.
Okay, I have a mode for a lot of people throw this up there. This is for franchise. Kind of started on it, but since you guys aren't tied to an NFL license, will you be doing a salary cap, or will it be market based, old school NFL, before they introduce salary cap?
It'll be salary. It'll be salary cap. Yeah.
Okay, so Dynasty mode. Some people want to know, will there be a player lock or career mode feature in Dynasty mode?
A player lock or a career mode, we don't have any of that right now. No, that would be like a next layer type thing. You know, we got the foundation of Dynasty created, and then sort of any sort of like road to glory type mode or something like that will have to come later.
All right. So this is more on the monetization side of it. So
Monetization?
yeah, I stumbled there. So,
I always do that. Yeah.
With it being a free to play game, what is your stance on monetization and strategy?
The main goal is to, and keep in mind that we don't, you know, some people think that we have to like match our competitor in sales and all that stuff in order for us to be successful. We really don't. So, you know, our monetization, we're mostly going to be based around cosmetics, and a sort of season pass. That's the main thing. Cosmetic, season pass, and then the modes like Dynasty and Franchise, you're going to have to buy into that. But the way we're thinking of it right now is that that Franchise and Dynasty will be tied to the sort of season pass. So if you buy into the season pass, you can get the Franchise and Dynasty with it. We're not 100% sure on that yet, so don't quote me. You know, a lot of the monetization stuff could change in the next, you know, before we launch.
Yeah.
A lot of it, we're going to be doing a lot of testing on it to make sure it's not pissing people off. You know, because, you know, we're free to play, but it's, you know, there's still, you can really quickly just piss people off if you microtransaction them, you know, to hell. So our goal is not to microtransaction everybody to hell. The goal is just, if you want to buy cool cosmetics, we got some cool stuff. We got some really cool stuff that we haven't even shown yet. That's going to probably blow some minds. A lot of the stuff we don't show, like, just so you know, there's a lot of stuff we don't show.
That's crazy to say because y'all show a lot.
Yeah. So there's a whole bunch of cosmetics that we have. You can make any team, any player you want.
The customization aspect of it too, and I feel like that's also, it's part of responsibility as us as consumers. I will say consumers, as people that are going to be playing this football game. First and foremost, it's going to be free to play, and like you said, you have people getting pissed off with microtransactions. But at the end of the day, you downloaded tons of files that took a few years to create onto your whatever system or platform of choices for free. And all that somebody is asking you to make it, they're not forcing you to get a cosmetic. You're doing it because you enjoy the product. So I like that. Like that's really solid. That's good.
Honestly,
and there'll be sorry.
No, go ahead.
There'll be a default amount of customization that's free, right? So if you're somebody who just, you know, I don't want to, you know, there's kids who's going to want to jump in and they're not going to have money. You know, their mom, they don't have any money from their mom or something, and they still want to make teams. So there's a lot of default stuff that will be available. Like if you just want to make a regular team with no fancy face masks, you know, with, you know, like some crazy face masks and crazy visors and cool helmet pattern, all this kind of, if you just want to make a basic team, you can do it for free, right? But if you want to go crazy and you want to have like 6 alternate uniforms and all this different stuff, then that's a different story.
Okay. So honestly, right now I'm just a Futurama meme with the dude with Fry handing his money and just take my money. That's basically where I'm at right now. I got my money in my hand, just take it. Man, that's really about it. I got on the questions list. Isaiah, you got anything for him?
I can't really think of anything off the top of my head, but one question that I was thinking about throughout the process, I'm just gonna scroll up, make sure I'm not missing anything while I ask this. I mentioned that prior, like I haven't stepped into the sports gaming market. Like it's been a while, you know what I mean? I had a big disconnect, and I think it was the year that Steve McNair was on the cover. I think I was talking to my dad about it the other day. I think it was '09. I think that was I can't remember. But it's really solid to see you guys step into the space now. Now with all these, we have obviously maximum. Then you see recently varsity football stepping in and the implications of ESG with the it seems like a more solo customization status. Do you guys ever look at some of the new contenders in the space and look for some ways that you can implement that? Obviously yours is a different experience because it's sim, but do you look at ways that you can improve upon your product from the outside as well? Not just from Madden, but also from ESG and varsity.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm insane. I watch everything. So I
Yeah.
watch everything ESG does. I watch
You
everything
hear
Madden
that, people
does.
in the comments? He's
They
paying
watch it.
attention. That
Yeah.
it's something that I feel like a lot of people and I try to emphasize that. I was hoping I kind of get that point across in the interview that we as consumers seem to be under the impression that whenever you speak and comment on something that these people are developing, like it's not like that comment just goes off into the ether. These are things that are read, and sometimes even if it's unnecessarily critical and you're not offering any type of solution or productive response, you're kind of bogging down also what you're hoping to do well. It's almost like an oxymoron. So if we can offer some more good constructive criticism in the space, you have far more of a better chance of seeing the game succeed. And hearing somebody draw inspiration from other games, that it really is soothing. Like it's good to hear in the space. So that's just one question I was curious about, and that's really all I had myself personally.
Oh, I got one more from the chat that I completely somehow miss. We talked about the stadium and the creation and all that stuff, and we haven't seen weather in the game at all. Is that still being tweaked on, worked on in the background?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I just saw the winter stadium, or like some winter atmosphere stuff the other day. It looked really cool. Um, so the problem with weather is that I was pushing back against weather for a while. And the main obstacle was me on the team. Everybody else wanted to hurry up and get weather, and I was like, I was like, I don't know yet. I want because I don't just want to put snow in the game, right? I want to put deep snow that you have to like when it
Yeah.
really snows and you could slip, and then like if when you do a sharp turn, you slide a little bit more,
Yeah.
or it's hard to see downfield at a certain distance because there's so much snow, and then real footprints in the snow, and when you hit the ground, you kind of make a
Yes.
bundle. You start. I wanted to do snow for real, not just snow falling, and then it has no difference on your attributes or anything like that. And I also wanted to do rain for real, right? Like sheets of rain that throw the ball, like you throw the ball to
Puddles,
if you
water
you
puddling.
lob the
Yes.
exactly you lob the ball too much, it starts to drift.
Weather
A
effects.
bunch of stuff like
Yes.
exactly weather effect, but like real weather effects. That stuff's hard, right? It's hard to do. It's hard to get it all in there. So we do have weather effects now. I don't know how much. I'm sorry. We do have weather cosmetically right now, right? Like we have the visuals of weather right now.
Yes.
I don't know how much of the weather effects we will actually have by the time we launch, but we will be working on them. And post launch, we'll make sure that like snow is snow, rain is rain, and also I want to have real. I'm from Florida, and it's hot, right? It's
Yeah,
hot.
it's humid, hot, humid, sticky.
Yeah,
Humid, hot, and sticky.
Yeah. I would like a weather effect that's really strong heat, right? That really dehydrates the other team. And when
Yes.
you're in the sun, it starts to deplete your stamina. And when you're out of the sun, like in the shade, like Miami Dolphins do this all the time. Miami Dolphins put their opponents in the sun so they get tired and they stay in the shade. So
And
stuff
even
like
like
that.
cold weather, like your fingers getting cold, outside, like being able to catch a ball in the winter. If you're not moving a lot on the field, like you get cold. If you're not moving just in real life and it's cold
Yeah.
out, you're going to get cold. You know what I mean? Things like that.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah,
really
that's a good
that's
idea.
solid.
There may or may
Good
not
idea.
be a video on this channel that the old man Smoking Jay did talked about weather affecting attributes.
Yeah.
Exactly
Yeah.
what you talked about.
Yeah, that's
So
funny that you mentioned that.
that's crazy. We did this.
That's so cool.
Months
Because
ago.
we were talking about the games I remember that was for me at least. Maybe it's just like what do they call it, the Mandela effect. But I remember in like '02 NFL Fever, whenever the trailer first came out, they had a dude running in the snow, and like that was just crazy because the dude was running
Yep.
down the snow, and you could see his footprints getting left behind. What it didn't have any immediate effect on it, but the cosmetic and the aesthetic fact of it alone, like for a kid or somebody playing that game, imagine if it's really snowy outside and they just want to replicate that in game and kind of just get more immersed in what they're in. So seeing that even from the cosmetic and the aesthetic standpoint is solid. It doesn't even necessarily have to affect it if the physics are already being prioritized on a player-to-player basis. So that's really cool to hear so many layered, aspects of a game coming together.
And then you could do a little more too, right? Like with the attributes, like you're saying, you could have Florida boys who don't play very well in the
Yeah, don't
snow.
play in the
Right?
cold.
Mhm.
Yeah, they're not
Or
using
vice
the cold,
versa.
so they don't even have like the
Yeah,
gloves
exactly.
for it.
People
Yeah,
in Montana coming down
don't
to
got
play
the
in
cleats,
Florida.
plastic
Yeah.
cleats, metal cleats. There's so many different things that actually do
Yeah.
affect that I don't think people consider as a factor that go in, and that's really fascinating. That's so cool though. That
So
is
dope
really
that
cool.
you even had that thought process. Literally was just talking about that months ago. That would be
Yeah,
so
that's
cool. That
awesome.
was so dope. A lot of people think that game developing is so easy, but there's
Yeah.
so many layers to this, and I've learned
Seeing
so much.
just
sitting
seeing
with
that
people.
animation time frame that was actually a really big eye opener. There was like little small facets, but then you think about the 3D modeling that goes into it, getting all the pixels to work. Like it's actually really interesting to see the breakdown of that and hear it from it's almost like from inception. It's really cool to hear how that all goes into a process.
I got one more gameplay we can actually talk about. It's just a dude wide open in the middle of the field. Just as simple as him making a catch wide open in the middle of the field. It's wild. He's running the street
Oh, you have
down
it
the
up on
hashes.
screen.
Yep, I got it on the screen
Okay.
right now. It's just something as simple as him running wide open. It's crazy, man. Like the work that goes into just something as simple as him catching a ball.
Yeah, watching the
Yeah.
animation keyframes, it's just like wow, because it's like you can see it's like all right, the ball's here. Is it this animation? No, and
Mhm.
like that window is so small. You got to consider we're already looking at this on a frame by frame basis. That's not like 30, 60 FPS. Like it's slow already. So to be finding that in that time window and considering all the different variables like linebackers, corners,
Yeah.
it's just like man, there's a lot more that goes into this than just saying he threw that way. Why didn't he
Yeah.
catch it? It's
Ex-
a lot deeper than that.
Exactly, Turk. Like
Yeah.
I can't believe it. Like we're not even configuring the defense in this. Like
Yeah,
that's the
yeah, that's
wild part.
yeah. So the first thing we do is make things look perfect. Like try to make things look or work well in a perfect environment, right? Like this is an environment where everybody has 100 attributes. There's no defenders on the field messing things up, and so it's just a perfect environment. So we make sure that the passes are perfect in this environment, and then we move it into a real environment with defenders and players who have worse attributes and see how it works. Um, But another point to what you're saying about how hard development actually is, a good way to think of it is that like, when you go, it's sort of like construction of a building. Like we're building a giant building, right?
Mhm.
That's what we're making here. But we don't just build the building. We actually have to build the bulldozer first. We have to build the tools that make the building, right? Like this that you're
Yeah.
looking at right here, this is a tool to actually create the game. And you have
Yeah.
to spend a lot of time creating tools. So it's like you have to build the bulldozer, you had to build the dump truck, you got to build the shovels, you got to build everything,
That was
the
the
hard hats.
variable I was talking about. Like the player almost, because you're building the game itself is the game, but then the player itself, you're considering almost like the pilot of this thing that you're giving. You know what I mean? It's at the end of the day, you're like people are going to be using this and playing this,
With
and there's so
actual
many.
humans.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's really like you said, you're creating the tools, and that kind of really it clicked in my brain when I was watching all the animations, the keyframe. I was like, man, like they're building this game, and then they have to consider what ways can somebody find a way to exploit this that we haven't went over. How can somebody like? There's so many different variables that go into this. It's just really fascinating to see. And also one thing from our Mort, I didn't mean to like go into the other one. One of our mods asked a question. He says, "What are the long term goals for Maximum Football? What would you think is a long term goal for you guys?"
The long term goal is just to be number one, right? I mean, we want to
Yes,
make
that's what
there
I'm
you
talking
go.
about.
Yes,
we
sir.
the short term goal is just to establish ourselves as a solid simulation football game. Something, we want people to think of us in the same light as they think of 2K and Madden, and just as a top tier football game.
Yes.
And so that's our first goal. That's our first goal is just to get in the conversation, right? Just so people know us and they talk about us in the same breath that they talk about the other top football games.
Mhm.
And then after that,
Sky's
we're
the
good.
limit.
Yeah, sky's the limit
Yeah.
after that. And one good thing about this kind of ties into your last question about building the game is that everybody on our team knows how to build this game. We built the game together. Like we built this game. So it's not a situation where all the people who built the game left the studio 10 years ago. And now we have to relearn,
Mm,
all the tools that they made and dig into it and figure it all out. And, this is something that, one
like a
of my,
passion project.
yeah. So this is something that my coworker, my boss Bruce has said before that I think was really wise is that there's certain you either build civilization or you just live in the civilization that other people built, right? And so like we're building this civilization here. And not only that, like we're not just living in something that somebody else built. Like we built this, so we know all the details of it. If we want to change something in the game, we know exactly what to change. So our ability to iterate and to make the game better is very fast. Like we're running at this, like, for the first year and a half, we were kind of just walking and crawling, and progress is a little slow. But we have a team now that understands everything we're working on, like to a T. We understand everything we're working on. We know what we're doing. When something breaks, we know how to go fix it.
Yeah.
We understand the game we're working on because we built it from the ground up.
I think we just found the quote for Maximum Football. We built this.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. That kind of stuff. I was like, man, I thought about standing up and just going looking on the porch for a second and thinking about life in that quote. I was like, man, am I living in a civilization or did I build this?
I'd write that on a poster, sir, and put that as a marketing team. We built this civilization. I love that. Okay, we have one super chat question too. I missed. Sim Gaming Network. Shout out to Sim Gaming. He asked, "Will kicks be affected by the wind when weather is?" So we were talking.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they will. Right now they don't because we don't have like wind effects right now, but eventually they will. Yeah.
Great. Well, Isaiah, Kirk, you got anything else?
I think I got my brain picking personally, man. I'm not gonna. This was like so much more. Like obviously, I was really excited to have the interview and just kind of like you said, pick your brain here. But I got so much more information than I expected. I don't got any more to ask myself, and I just appreciate you coming on here and letting us pick your brain and expose, like I said, the more in my whole, like I said, intermediary, and just expose the good side of the community and provide good feedback. So I just appreciate you being here, and that's all for me personally.
I can't even say anything else better than what Turk just said. I said before, thank you for taking time out of your day. I learned more here than I thought I was going to.
Absolutely.
You really broke it down. You literally got everybody hyped in the chat. So I'm just going to leave the floor for you right now, man. Tell the people where they can find you, anything you want to say to the community that's here, all 90 plus people in this chat. So, floor's yours.
First off, thanks for having me. We should do this again. I mean, I'm down to do it whenever you guys want to.
Absolutely.
You guys are cool. So I like chatting with you guys. This is fun. We're launching this year. I can't give you the exact date yet. As soon as I know the date, I will tell. I mean, I already know the date, but as soon as I can tell you guys the date, and believe me, I want to tell you more than you guys want to know it, because I'm so just like, oh my god, I can't say anything. I can't say anything online without people like, where's the date? Where's the date?
Yeah.
So I'm desperate to tell you guys the date. But I'm glad to be here. I'm really excited about this game. One thing, just support us. I don't mean support us like we're bums and we need we need your money. I mean just support us. Defend us if you see people online saying bad stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
Because it sounds dumb, but word of mouth it does matter.
It matters so much.
Yeah.
It just matters.
Yeah.
And you have unnecessary complaints without any articulate, like I said, good positive solutions for stuff that you're complaining about. Because if you're a genuine supporter of anything, you're not just going to complain blindly. You wouldn't do that to anything or anybody that you care about. Just complain blindly without any offering of a solution. So that last part is so big, and I echo that as loudly as I possibly can. So I can't iterate that enough.
I get so tired of seeing the misinformation and negativity behind things for no reason. I'm not gonna put names out here. I'm not doing that. I'm not giving limelight to people that don't deserve it, man. But we all know how hard you work in the community and the team you got. It shows. It shows y'all care. So thank you.
Yeah, glad to do it, man. It's exciting.
Hey, man. Well, I can't wait to have you back on. Maybe we'll get you back on, after you make that big announcement that everybody's been waiting on.
Yeah. All right.
I'm going to hit you guys with the usual YouTube plug. Please, 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 if you enjoyed this, please hit the like button and hit the subscribe button. It does help us out so much. And follow this man on Twitter.
Yeah.
Follow everything Maximum Entertainment.
Everything Maximum that you can. Look for it and dig for it.
Click it. Hit the button.
Yes.
But until next time, guys, it has been SG.